Azhar, salam man, how you doing?
Walaikum salam, Nouri. Great. I'm doing great. How are you doing, brother?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. You are a man of many talents, as hopefully we'll go over in this episode. And it's great to see all your creativity and how it kind of intertwines with your spirituality. Something hopefully which we'll explore in this episode. I want to start off first with something you're being a part of soon, which is Miss Marvel. And it is definitely something that I would say that a lot of us are looking forward to. Can you tell us a bit about, getting cast in the show and what we can expect to see from it when it comes out?
Bismillah. I mean, well, first of all, thank you, man, for bringing that up. I'm a little bit leery to talk about it only because I'm under a lot of...
All those NDAs.
Yeah, I'm under a lot of restrictions, and I know they have a big publicity blitz planned, naturally, before the show drops. My understanding is the show is supposed to drop later this year.
Mm-hmm.
So think of, probably November, December timeframe. Now we're in mid-July, so realistically, they're going to start doing some press and all that, I'm sure, in the next couple months. So I can't really talk about it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's public that I'm in it. They haven't even announced what part I play. I can just say that I play I play a recurring role in the show. So I'm in about half the episodes. I provide comedic, I play a comedic character. I provide comic relief in the show. As far as what to expect, I mean, it has a pretty, Marvel in general obviously has a pretty hardcore fan base. And then Miss Marvel, has a very devoted and rabid fan base,
100%.
Which I did not know about. I'm not a big comic book guy, personally.
You're about to find out, bro.
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not a big comic book guy. So, yeah, just how it came about was, it's funny because, I think I have, like a lot of creative people that end up in, quote-unquote, show business, for lack of a better term, because that's a pretty undefined term. And like you guys are making a podcast. Are you in show business?
I hope so.
I don't know.
Bobby,
you make it. Do you hope so? Is that your intention? Because I don't know. I mean,
we're not making,
right now
we're not making money out of it. Technically, we're not in show business. We might be in show.
So right now you just have a show, right? Yeah. Well, actually, this is a cliche. This is a cliche thing that people in show business talk about. But I never heard it till I got in this crazy world, which is that a lot of creative people don't realize that it's called show business for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Half of it is the show, and the other half is business.
Mm.
And sometimes your creative vision, your artistic sensibility, can become affected, if not outright corrupted, the moment you introduce commerce and financial matters into the art. So Chappelle had a nice take. He says, when art meets commerce is when it becomes entertainment.
Mm.
So your podcast right now, is it for the culture, is it for the art, or is it to make a bag of money, or is it to do both down the road?
Depends who you ask.
What's that?
Depends who you ask. I think Hasnain wants to make tons of money. I'm just bored.
I'm in it for the bag, bro.
I already sussed out the difference between the two.
Do you struggle with that at all? I mean, as an, I guess, quote unquote artist, is that something you fear? Is that something you struggle with, the relationship between art and business? Because I think in this day and age, every artist, entertainer has to an extent market themselves to get the art out there, right? So, I mean, where do you kind of find the balance with that?
I mean, yes, I do struggle with that. I continue to struggle with that. I've always struggled with that. I still struggle with that. I don't like Hollywood. Show business, the business side of show business, that in my judgment tends to corrupt intentions. It tends to corrupt the purity of the artist's vision. When you just have other parties that get in the mix and their motives are very clear. They want to make money. And that's fine. They're capitalists. They are engaged in this thing that's called the entertainment industry, right? Again, it's entertainment industry. It's an industry. It's show business. These are business people who want to make money off your creativity. So that shit always bothers me, man. I don't like being in a position where, to serve someone else's financial motive, you have to compromise or wrestle with your own artistic impulse and desire and intent, and then either water it down or sell out or change. So there's always a tension, man. There's always a tension. I would say that, where I've landed in this in my life anyway is, to attempt, and again, this is just an intention. Sometimes I feel that I'm more successful at it than other times, but the intention anyway is to, never corrupt the artistic motive, and to figure out a way to operate where, the art is so cool and so good that it is commercially viable, and and people will pay money for it, and you don't have to compromise your integrity, you don't have to compromise your intent, you don't have to compromise the quality of what you're trying to do. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the goal anyway, and that's the game. I would say that's in some ways the game. You could just be a non-commercial artist. You guys can just put out this podcast and keep making it for the rest of your lives for free, never put ads on it, never charge people, maybe take gifts, donations. The gift economy is something I believe in a lot. The gift economy is based on this book by a guy called Charles Eisenstein that is really worth reading. It's called Sacred Economics. In Sacred Economics, he gets into this whole thesis and this whole theory of, a so-called gift economy. What would that look like? Where people are operating not based on just money, the exchange of money, but rather operating based on two principles: give what you can, take what you need, and the principle of fair exchange. Rather than determining price based on supply and demand and just trying to gouge people when you have the leverage, instead approaching pricing from a fairness framing, like what's fair, and then being happy to get what's fair and to pay what's fair, rather than having to overpay because of market forces or get underpaid because of market forces. So anyhow, this gets into critiques of capitalism and all that, which is beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But I'll just say, long story short, I mean, definitely there's a tension there when it comes to trying to make art that is commercial art. And I've said this before in other interviews, like I just feel that so much of content these days, I mean, my God, we're drowning in content, right? So many podcasts, so many streaming shows, so many YouTubers, so many Twitch streamers, so many Instagram influencers, TikTokers. It just never ends. And in every moment, right, while we've been talking for the last 20 minutes, hundreds, if not thousands of, I don't know how many hours of content has been uploaded, right? It's just we're drowning in content. So my feeling towards it is sort of like the internet has become full of heat. Very little light. The internet content is mostly heat. It's very little light. So I'm not interested in contributing towards more heat. I want to pick my openings more carefully and only put forward stuff if I really believe that it's not just contributing towards heat. It's actually hopefully contributing towards making some light or offering some light. And that's hard, man. And it just requires me to maintain a really high standard. I don't always hit that standard. I have to make a living as well. Right. So many wisdoms I've gained from mentors in the game. I mean, Chappelle is definitely somebody who I don't want to I'm not trying to name drop him, but I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from him. And he told me many times, he'd be like, listen, Azhar, he'd be like, Azhar, listen, there's a difference between making art and making a living. It's profound, man. There's a difference between making art and making a living. Yeah. So I've been offered stuff. Sometimes I just did it for the money. I did it for the opportunity. I did it for the resume building. We're also building our resumes. Right. So it's like I was in a show on Amazon called Patriot. You could check that out. I was in 2 seasons of the show. It's actually a really cool show. It's well made. It's extremely well written. The guy who created the show is a genius. Like I thoroughly enjoyed all my working on it, definitely. And I got paid. I got credits and all that. But gun to the head, like, is that the kind of storyline and the kind of premise that I'm proud of being part of? It's Hollywood content. It's Hollywood content.
it's so interesting you mentioned that, because even, you know, recently I was looking into kind of trying to get our numbers up on this podcast on YouTube, and something I realized about the YouTube world is that it seems like so much content is created specifically to garner views and attention. And you know, the way that kind of drives the content you create means that you're not just creating, as you said, from a place of, or as you alluded to, from a place of truth almost, but you're creating because you want people to click on your video. You want people to click on, click on what you're doing, and essentially, I guess, ultimately monetize it, right? And that's definitely something, a conversation I've been having with myself as well this past year, because, like you said, we all got to eat, right? We got to make money, but at the same time, we want to do what we love. So I guess finding the challenge between that is really difficult, and I guess it's very refreshing to see someone like yourself who is in the industry still having those conversations with yourself, and I definitely really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, let me add to that. I mean, like, most of my peers think I'm a snowflake. You know? They think I'm way too sensitive about these things, and maybe they're right. But you know, I just really keep it top of mind that, you know, like, you have to die.
Yeah, 100%.
And stand before God. Like, that's not a joke to me. That's not something that's ever far away from my mind. And so, you know, I have to, every choice that I make creatively and artistically and career-wise, I do have to weigh that against a very real and heavy truth, which is, okay, I may be asked about this. You know, what's my answer? And if I'm selling out to get a bag of money, you know, at least I want to be clear that that's what I'm doing. I don't want to be lying to myself and trying to create some story to convince myself of some bullshit that I know is not true. But I just want to feel good about myself, and I want to justify what I'm doing. Like, I'm not interested in living that kind of life. I did that. I lived like that for many years, and I was out of integrity, I would say. And it took a real big life-altering set of experiences. Like, I got hit by a car in 2016. Wow. Yeah, I was crossing the street. I got hit by a car in August 2016. And that was a life-altering experience for me, man. So, really, honestly, I would say that, if single event, probably more than anything else, was a massive eye-opener about many of the big themes that we're talking about. You know, just the seriousness of life, how real it is. Like, I feel like I'm in the bonus round already. Like, in some ways, I thought I died.
Wow. In
that car accident, I thought I died. So I had like a very, I had an experience that is probably beyond words, and I wouldn't feel comfortable even trying to do justice talking about it in this podcast. But I'll just say that, you know, it was like the first domino that led to a whole series of dominoes that radically reconstituted my whole life, my personal life, my professional life. You know, I look at life as three big buckets: health, wealth, family. That's what I was taught by, you know, some of my mentors, my teachers, especially religious teachers. You know, life is three buckets: health, wealth, family. And know that God will test you in one or two or all three of those buckets. And then what I was taught is, you know, if you are so lucky that God does not test you in your health, in your wealth, or in your family, like we all know people like just out there killing it, killing life.
I know a few of those guys.
Then know that God will send you someone in your life who is being tested in their health, wealth, and or family. And then your test becomes, do you help them?
Oh, that's deep, man. Oh, I felt that.
But there's no escaping. Yeah, there's no escaping this. This is life. When we say life is a test, this is the test. So when I think about my life that way, health, wealth, family, it's like I'm working on a stand-up joke right now. You know, it's like health, wealth, family. I'm 0 for 3. I'm fat. You know, my kids don't talk to me. I'm broke. Like, so. I mean, there's something really funny there, but I haven't worked it out yet. But anyway, long story short, man, you know, this is, to me, at some point, the lines totally started to get blurred. You know, when you're an artist, like, if you're really trying to be real about, you know, servicing that artistic impulse that's from God, it's creativity is a gift from God, then at some point, the lines start to blur. You know, it's like, well, your personal life, your professional life, your art, your work. Your art becomes your work. Your work becomes your art, you know? And you end up kind of in this weird existence where, you know, negotiating the boundaries of what you do want to do and why, and what you don't want to do and why not. You know, it can become a very tricky and slippery slope. So all of this was a branch of my answer to your question about Miss Marvel.
Beautiful. Well, that's a sign of things to come. It means we'll have a very long but very intriguing episode, inshallah.
I'm very grateful. Let me also say I'm pretty grateful. You know, I talk mad shit about like advertising and mega media companies that just are slaves to advertising. That's all they care about, making ad money, making subscription money. They're interested in the money. They really could care less. This was a big unlock for me, man. Understanding what mass media is, understanding what television is. You know, there's a great book. You have to read it if you're interested, especially in a serious way, to pivoting towards a career in entertainment content, whether it's as a YouTuber or making a podcast, or for that matter, the TV film side or music or whatever. You know, understanding what mass media is. I would say it's like a necessary component. You know, it's like, and this is true for any rational thinking person. It's especially true for a believing Muslim. If you're a believing Muslim who's serious about trying to follow deen, religion, real prophetic teaching, then, you know, you actually have an obligation to learn about any field that you want to enter. You know what I mean? You're not obligated to learn about things that you're not involved in.
Right.
But if you guys are making a podcast now, it's like, okay, well, you're in it, bro. You're already doing it. So you better learn about, you know, media and what is media. And what you were talking about earlier, like everybody wants to get clicks and attention. It's like, yeah, buddy, that's the game. That's what it is. We're basically everybody making content now is like an attention whore, just trying to get your attention. And there's books written about this. You know, the Attention Merchants is a fantastic book. I forgot the guy's name. John Woo, something Woo. You know, the Attention Merchants. How all of these aggregators, YouTube, Instagram, you know, Facebook, they are aggregating content, but they're also the network that has all the users coming to watch it. And they are just taking the lion's share of the dollar value generated by that attention. And you as the creator, quote unquote, are just getting, you know, pennies on the dollar. So are you okay with that? Is that right? Is that how it should be? Right? You know, the classic Mos Def had a great line, Yasin Bey, where he was like, look, man, would you rather be Eminem and sell 10 million albums and get $1 an album? Or would you rather be Yasin Bey and sell 1 million albums but get $10 an album? Same amount of money. If you're in it for the money is interchangeable. But you have 10 million albums out, 10 million fans versus 1 million fans. Celebrity status versus just like, you know, a known artist. And there's levels of celebrity and fame, right? I mean, that's the other cool thing is like, I'm not a famous guy, but I get to spend time. I consider myself what's called fame adjacent. That's a term I stole from a friend of mine.
You're at every party, basically. Religious party.
What's that?
You're at every party. You're there in the background somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I can get exactly. I can be in the room, but it's like nobody knows who I am except those who, as long as the people who matter to me know who I am. It's like that scratches my nafs, my ego itch, you know. But the point I want to make is being a famous person, becoming a celebrity, and then the cost that comes along with being a known celebrity person in the world. And then you go out with them and it's just like, my God, they're just being mobbed in the street and people stopping them every 10 feet to take a picture and autographs and this, like you're under a microscope all the time. You know, the fishbowl syndrome, as it's known. It's like you're inside a fishbowl and people just gazing at you and you're constantly under the microscope. Your life is under scrutiny. Like you end up making a trade to become a famous person. The trade is your celebrity. You get celebrity for your privacy. And you're now literally a public figure. And there's different laws even that apply to public figures. right? The things that the tabloids can say about you, the things that your enemies can say about you. It's very different if you're a public figure versus a private person, or if you're between those two things, which is called a semi-public figure. So this is stuff, maybe I'm getting too technical because I studied this also as a lawyer. I used to be a lawyer before I got into all this creative work. But, you know, this is real, man. This is the real world. And a lot of people don't understand the trade that they're about to make before they've already made it. And you can't undo that trade. You know, you cannot undo that trade. If you become a famous person and people know who you are, you can't become can't undo that transaction and get your privacy back. So you realize what you've traded, you know? So I've been, and then among the famous people I know, it's like there's layers to it, right? There's altitude. There's the mega celebrity, crazy, like, and then there's like, oh yeah, you're famous, but like you could still kind of keep to yourself. And then there's like, you know, you have your audience, but you can go in the world and nobody knows who you are. And there's different costs and benefits to each of those things, you know? So anyhow, I've become a student in many ways of just like this type of the realities of this world, of this showbiz world of Hollywood, and how people operate in that. Hollywood is the name of a town, but it's also the name of an industry. It's the name of an attitude. It's the name of a mentality, and it's the name of a lifestyle. And I hate all of them.
Wow.
Like, I'm not about any of that. I'm not about that shit, man. It's very vapid. It's very vacuous. It's very concerned with hype, not substance. It's all heat, no light.
I really like that perspective of you know, creating light. I think that's just such an interesting way to look at making art, be it film or comedy or whatever kind of art it is. I know when you started Allah Made Me Funny tour, which is, you know, something all of us kind of look back to as I was reading that you were referred to as beginning a post 9/11 Muslim stand-up comedy, which I don't know if you're too happy with that term, but I did read it. But it was very groundbreaking and very you know, very original. I think one thing that that kind of interested me and intrigued me was when you started it, you were first doing it at Muslim conventions like ISNA and I guess Muslim locations, and then you kind of expanded it to doing it, you know, as a tour worldwide. I feel like there's a distinction between, and maybe it's just in my head, but Muslim media and mainstream media. So, for example, you have your Islam channels, your Peace TVs, and you know that kind of media, and then you have your NBCs and your Hollywood. Do you feel like there is a difference between these two worlds, and do you feel like you know, Muslims who create content can be trapped in either one of these worlds, or is it just something I'm completely making up?
I mean, it's a good question. I think I spent a lot of time myself thinking about that. You know, just a couple of quick corrections just on the history.
Please.
Because Allah Made Me Funny, we started that. Preacher Moss was actually the creator of that tour. He invited me to be a co-creator on that tour. And that was in 2004. The tour was post 9/11, but Preacher Moss had been doing comedy since the 90s.
Right.
I started doing stand-up before 9/11, and it was just the idea to team up and produce this Muslim-themed comedy show. That idea was post 9/11, but both of us had already been doing comedy from before 9/11. So 9/11 was really, in many ways, kind of like this political event, this historic event that suddenly created a lot of interest around hearing Muslim voices. You know, it was almost like born out of the desire to like hear from the quote unquote enemy, you know, because Muslims have been painted as this enemy, if not all Muslims, and certainly their religion and their lifestyle, their civilization. And that feeds into a lot of very dangerous and I would say outdated views of the world. You know, this idea of the East and the West, the Muslim world versus the West. You know, these are in many ways kind of like thought constructs that have not really. They have, you know, they have some bearing in reality. I'm not denying that they're based on something real. At the same time, they end up reinforcing a lot of kind of ideas that are not real. You know, like I'm sure you live in the UK. I mean, this every time I go to the UK and hear anybody having this type of discourse around, like, will Muslims integrate into British society? It's like the mayor of London is Muslim. What are you talking about? What the hell? 10% of London is Muslim. They haven't integrated yet. Will Muslims integrate into Europe? Have you heard of Bosnia? Like, what the hell are you talking about? There's Albania. Like, Muslims are in Europe, bro. What are you talking about? Muslims have been in Europe. The Pope used to pay a jizya to the Caliph. I don't know if you know this. You get into the history of the complicated relationship between Islam, the world of Islam, and the world of Christendom throughout the medieval and the Middle Ages. It's a very complicated history, and this idea of otherizing. Western people otherize Muslims. Oh, they're so different. They're so weird. They have these funny foods. They dress funny. They smell weird. They have different, weird, difficult to say names with a lot of khas and has. And it's like, listen, you can otherize all you want. History is, the real actual history is, Western European Christendom did not find Muslims and their religion Islam to be problematic for Europe because they saw Muslims as so different. On the contrary, the real history is European Christendom found Muslims and Islam to be problematic because Islam was too close for comfort. It's like, bro, we're the sequel. Islam is the sequel, bro. What are you talking about? It's a religion that confirms everything that was given to Jesus Christ, ﷺ, given to Moses. And then it's like, the piece y'all are missing is the final messenger of God. But yeah, we accept everything that is in the Bible and the Torah. It's like, this is a trippy thing, bro. If you're a Christian trying to hear, it's like, bro, time out. Because either you're on the truth or you're the devil, right? It's like, and that's their answer. That they cannot account for who the messenger of God is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor can they explain the Quran. The Quran is the original blockchain, baby. The Quran is the original blockchain. The distributed ledger, it's immutable. You cannot change the record. Millions of people have memorized it. You cannot get enough people together to conspire to change the words of the Quran. That's the whole basis of blockchain technology. That's what distributed ledger is. So the very things that make you so obsessed about Bitcoin, it's like, you idiot. Why don't you understand about the history of Quran? This is why Muslims are so convinced that the Quran is the word of God. Like, it's not irrational. It's not anti-rational. 100%. It's super rational. It's supra-rational. It's like, your rationality can never encompass something that is beyond this world. Anyhow, we're going to get into a khutbah, but it is Friday.
Oh yeah, you've also become my sheikh, by the way, just letting you know.
I will say this: I am not taking Azhar to Speaker's Corner with me.
No, you should take him. Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner basically is this historic site in London, about near central London, where a lot of people come and just kind of like voice their opinions, and it's basically become this now a debate battleground between Muslims, Christians, atheists. They debate politics. There's also a lot of sectarian debates there, and it's just become this really. It's become basically a battle without fists, if you call it that.
Without what?
It's a battle without fists or without guns. It's a battle of words and intellect. So I would argue, Hasnain, that Azhar is the perfect person to take the Speaker's Corner.
So it sounds like it's verbal MMA, basically.
It's verbal. It does get, based on some of the videos I've seen, it does get pretty. I've seen some people attacked. So.
Yo, I want to go there immediately. That sounds.
Yeah, if you ever come down, I'll take you. Guest of honor.
All of this was a branch of answering your question about mainstream, quote unquote, versus Muslim media.
But genuinely, so sorry if I can, before you carry on, it's a question that really intrigues me a lot because I work a lot in quote unquote Islamic media. I'm a freelancer. A lot of my clients are Islamic channels, Islamic organizations, Islamic charities, etc. And I feel like there is this. I feel like the world of being a cinematographer on a film set or being a camera assistant on a TV series is a completely different world to the world I'm in for whatever reason. So I guess, would you say there's a difference in these two worlds? Would you say that there are you're either in one or the other, and what is that kind of the contradiction between the two?
Yeah, or the relationship. The way I think about it is a little bit like, what's that?
Sorry, the relationship between the two, not the contradiction.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would say this is a little bit like Damon John starting FUBU. You familiar with FUBU?
You lost me. Hastain, do you know? Is it an American thing?
Maybe it's an
Yeah, I
American.
know FUBU.
FUBU. So FUBU is a streetwear brand created by this entrepreneur, Damon John,
Yeah.
Black American entrepreneur in the textile and apparel category. FUBU, F-U-B-U, stands for us, by us.
Okay.
So it was born out of his observation that like, you know, there's a certain style to streetwear that Black Americans want to wear.
Right.
There are designers who are not really designing for that sensibility. Let me just launch a brand that is for us, by us. Let me employ people from my community. Let me create products and for my community. Let me circulate the dollars within my community. You know, there's a lot of tangible and intangible benefits that accrue from super serving a niche. He built this FUBU brand into a multi-billion-dollar business. And then he ended up being a shark on Shark Tank. So it's sort of like, okay, well, is he a niche guy or is he a mainstream guy? Did he build his niche so big that it's like, you know, how big does a niche have to be before it's not a niche anymore? And I would also say that, you know, the more time I've spent around, you know, again, show business, quote unquote. And when I say show business, they're sort of like show business proper, you know, the networks and the brands that we're kind of used to considering as part of the ecosystem of Hollywood versus all of those brands that are kind of on the fringes of Hollywood, and they do the same thing. They make content, they distribute content, they market content, but because it's not done in this so-called mainstream way, it is considered niche. For example, there's a whole world of Christian media in the United States. Christian rappers, Christian rock bands, Christian movies, right? They call them faith-based. Hollywood calls them faith-based content. But you go look up the numbers, and it's like, yo, some of these Christian rappers have as many album sales, if not more, than so-called mainstream rappers.
Wow.
Go look at the download numbers. Go look at the actual figures. Look up some of these rappers on Insta or whatever these social media metrics are. They have as many followers and fans, if not more, than many people you've heard of that are so-called mainstream artists. So what you start to realize when you kind of get past the intellectual framing and the cognitive frames that are put on this content, right, which is an editorial decision being made by human beings, when you retire those and you just look at the sheer numbers, it's like, bro, just because you call it niche or an affinity market or whatever, doesn't mean anything. We have to be clear on what the game is that you're playing to begin with. If you just want to make a podcast that you want Muslims to listen to, there's almost 2 billion Muslims in the world. Half of them speak English. That's a niche. So I don't even know what the terminology is inherently kind of loaded with a lot of assumptions. Now, that being said, if I accept this terminology and I accept this frame, let's say I was a Christian trying to make Christian movies, right? Then it's sort of like there's this whole independent ecosystem of Christian producers, Christian directors, Christian independent production companies, whatever. And I can make industry quality content, and I can hire, mainstream actors, again, quote unquote, mainstream actors who are represented by the same Hollywood agencies and blah, blah, blah. Like, I can still make a piece of mainstream content. This storyline happens to be, a guy who lost faith and then found Jesus or whatever. And like, is that mainstream or is that niche? I don't know. Who gets to decide? So what are the metrics by which we're deciding? Oh, if it's on a billboard on the side of the road and it's on the magazine at the checkout aisle in the grocery store, and if the song is playing in the grocery store, then it's mainstream. But if you're not on the billboard and you're not on the bus and you're not on the magazine, even though you might have more sales on the internet, you're not mainstream. Okay, I mean, I guess somebody is deciding those metrics, but there's a lot of, kind of fake. A lot of this is fake. So I think what we mean when we say mainstream is really this idea of acceptance by white people.
That's interesting. Wow. That's
deep. I think that's basically code. We use the term mainstream. Non-white people, black people have this framing. I would say it's a problem. Latinos have it. Brown people of all sorts have it. This idea of like, oh, I want to cross over. I want to be quote unquote mainstream. It's like, yeah, but what you're really saying is I want to sell to white people. I want white people to accept me. I want them to listen to my music. I want them to watch my content. I want to get those white dollars because white dollars are more valuable to me than brown dollars. Or pounds, I guess, in your case. So
I don't have any comments on that, man. You know which side of the spectrum I'm on with that.
Yeah, so this is another aspect of the conversation that often gets glossed over, is what are we even talking about when we talk about so-called mainstream versus niche? Now, that being said, I have worked many years in the Muslim, I call it the Muslim bubble. Making content for the Muslim bubble, servicing the Muslim bubble. Bubbles, yeah, exactly. There are bubbles, in fact, right? There's the, there's the Sunni Shia thing. There's the, the age thing. There's ethnic breakdowns, right? There's the Arabs. There's the South Asians. So there's all these communities and all these little bubbles, and each one of them is really a niche, okay? But being clear on what it is you're trying to do in the first place as a creative person. What is it that I'm trying? Who am I talking to? Who is my audience? Right? A lot of the stuff and by the way, a lot of this is stuff that's top of mind because I am actually very actively figuring out what I want to do in the content space, either making a podcast or making an album or making a special or whatever. And as I, go through my various options and I look at the various collaborators I could partner with, and I have to really put under the microscope, like, what is it exactly I'm trying to do? What am I trying to say? Who do I want to say this to? And then how do I want to get in front of those people? And then I want to pick my path and the partners more tactically to get to what I want to get to strategically, rather than be beholden to any of these frameworks that I don't even accept to begin with. I mean, I just think that they're wrong-headed framings. And by the way, if Islam is not mainstream right now, my God, are you kidding me? Islam is going super mainstream. Muslim culture, what Muslims believe, what Muslims are about, how Muslims talk, how Muslims dress. This is all becoming, quote-unquote mainstream now. So Islamic sensibilities are beginning to overwhelm the culture, which is, by the way, I think a big part of what, a lot of right-wing white people are really upset about.
Right.
But what they're really upset about is like, bro, your time is over. Have you seen that movie, The White Tiger?
I have not, no. Hasn't you seen it?
You know what I'm talking about?
Hasn't have you seen it, White Tiger?
I don't know.
It sounds familiar, but I haven't seen it, though.
It's a Netflix original based on a book called The White Tiger, a novel, which is fantastic. Definitely check it out. And there's a great line in there. It's basically about this Indian... it's a story of a poor Indian, basically wretch, just servant on the lowest caste. And his path.
I have seen it. Never mind.
Yeah, there's a great line in there where he's just like,
the
age of the white man is over. It's the age of the brown man and the yellow man.
Yeah. Priyanka Chopra's in it.
And it's India, China, and what's coming in the next century. This is, of course, bro, if I was white, I would be scared. I'd be pissed. I'd be like, yo, you're trying to tell me we had a good run and our run is kind of over? It's like, yeah, bro, that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I've heard Rizamad rap about it, about the Earth becoming a brown planet. And the inevitability of it. Which
exactly. Sorry, I'm not sorry. And if anything, it's like Islam in all of that. When it gets into power and it gets turned into this like me versus you, us versus them, domination, which has to do with power. That's the part where, to me, it's less interesting. Like, I'm more interested in it from a deeply spiritual point of view. Islam, the essential teaching of the notion that, God made everything, including all of us, and that each of us is a human soul that happens to be put in a physical body while we're down here on earth. But never forget, you're actually the soul. And it is at that level of soul that all of us are standing before God as equals. Then you really start to see like, oh, that's what Malcolm X meant, that Islam is the cure to the racism that is to the cancer that is racism. Because he said Islam is the cure to the racism of the United States, because racism is a cancer. Well, at the heart of racism is this arrogance. I am better than you. You know, I'm white. I'm better than non-white people, or whatever. Or black supremacy. I'm black. I'm better than non-black people. Or, by the way, Muslim supremacy.
100%.
You know, what is Islamism, right? What is Islamism other than this bullshit idea that, oh, there's Muslim and Kafir, and Muslim life is inherently more valuable than Kafir life? What the fuck are you talking about, bro? You made this up. This is not religion. This is not Islam. This is not prophetic. This is not from Quran. This is your horse shit that you guys made up, and I divorced myself from it, and I am an enemy of it. So this is a mind-bending thing to realize, like, wait, so you're telling me, like one of my teachers, he just, in passing one time, he's like, well, as you know, Azhar, most Muslims go to hell. And I was like, wait, excuse me, what? Like, yeah, they go there and a lot of them will be taken out, right? God will forgive people. But illa masha'Allah, unless God wills otherwise, this is the game, bro. So we have this Muslim supremacy, Jewish supremacy, which is what Zionism is, Hindu supremacy, which is what Hindutva and BJP is. Everybody's got this sickness. I'm better than you. We're better than other people inherently. This is wrong. And Islam, real prophetic religion, came to destroy exactly this lie. So people who get this, they understand that Islam is a salvation, bro, for so many of the sicknesses of modern society. And those who are caught up in the identity politics of it all, and power politics and domination and all this stuff, you know, that stuff is just not interesting to me. If anything, it's like that's the kind of stuff I want to critique and talk about through art, and you know, that's hopefully what I'm working on. I do want to say one thing that we started before we, I think, started taping. I was saying to you guys that I listened to some of the old back catalog of the podcast, and I'm not sure if it was New Nuri or if it was Hasnain. I think it was New Nuri, and you were sort of pontificating about how, like, you know, it's a valid question to start out asking, you know, is it even right for Islam to be in Hollywood? You know,
that was Nuri.
Yeah. That was you?
That was me and my religiousness.
No, that was Nuri.
Oh, that was Nuri. Yeah.
I don't speak like that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to actually make you aware of something you may not know.
Please.
You know, and because I learned this, you know, later in life, and I was shocked actually. You know, you can look this up. There's books about the history of Hollywood, and pretty much every historian, major historian of filmmaking, modern filmmaking, and history of Hollywood, and specifically theatrical film distribution, like projecting of films on a screen, which is the birth of quote-unquote Hollywood, they all agree that the origin of modern cinema, theatrical film exhibition, is actually shadow puppetry. The shadow puppet theater, which is projection of light on a screen, shadows behind it being produced by the puppets, a gamelan orchestra playing the live soundtrack basically, and the voice actors doing the voices. This is the precursor to what becomes film. That's our shit, dog. That's Muslim. That Muslims of Southeast Asia, of Java, Sunan Kalijaga, the Wali Songo, the 9 Sufi saints of Indonesia, they are the inventors, and specifically Sunan Kalijaga is the inventor of what we regard to be, you know, this kind of evolved form of shadow puppetry, suluk wayang, that then goes on to become modern cinema. So when I relate to being a film, so when I relate to being in TV and film, I don't feel like an outsider trying to come in and carve out my space in this thing that I'm an alien to. I refuse that framing, and I reject that framing completely. It's like, dog, this is, you know, wisdom is the lost property of the believer. Wherever he finds it, it's his. Telling stories through moving pictures with a soundtrack and dialogue, that's 100% a Muslim activity. It's just a question of what you use it for. Are you telling a didactic story to teach a morality play, for example? Or are you using that technology to, you know, make a porn film, for example? So the instrumentalities are agnostic to the content. But make no mistake about it, these instrumentalities are Muslim innovations. They are Muslim inventions. And if we embrace them, we must embrace them with the energy that is like, brah, this is ours. This is a Muslim thing. I don't feel like an outsider trying to figure out how to find my way in this business. No. Y'all stole this, as you did everything else, from us. And I'm here to reclaim this. This is mine. using films to tell stories, that belongs to us. I do that as a proud Muslim grounded in tradition, not somebody who's trying to negotiate my way into it from an outsider framing. And this is a very important thing to realize, because I think it'll shift your entire dynamic and your entire energy towards doing what you do. It's not that these are new inventions that came into the world and now we have to figure out how to engage with them. That's not true at all. These Muslims. So I wanted to conclude one other point I was making about working both in the Muslim bubble versus working in so-called quote unquote mainstream entertainment. And I will say this, man. Muslim TV channels in the UK that I've been on those channels. I've been interacted with those people. One thing that is sadly often the case really just has to do with quality control.
Right. Yes. Agreed.
That's really what it is. If there was just greater quality control in the niche media, we would, I think, not necessarily look at quote unquote mainstream media as being inherently superior or more important. It's just that we regard mainstream media to have more gatekeepers and more boundaries and therefore more quality control. And so we tend to think that the Muslim bubble stuff is just lower quality. So I found myself in this path where I was like, you know what? I want to remain fiercely independent as an artist, but I want to make content that's industry quality. So I call this indie-street.
Love it.
Remaining indie, but producing industry quality stuff. And when I opportunistically can collaborate with the machinery that is mainstream entertainment, such as being in Miss Marvel as an actor or writing on the Ramy show as a writer-producer or whatever, it's like, okay, cool. I'll do that because it is mutually beneficial. It gives me experience. It gives me more momentum in my career. It opens up more doors. But make no mistake about it. Like, I'm not ever for a moment, हम हिलते नहीं हैं, हम कभी हिलते नहीं हैं, ये हमको कभी नहीं हिला सकते हैं. दिल जो है बिल्कुल, it's on the haq, inshallah. Ameen. May God make us thabbit qulubana ala.
No, you need subtitles for that.
I love it.
For the video.
No, I'm good. I got it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Hassan, I'm sorry. Before you jump in, because he made so many good points, I've got to just give a post Nuri analysis. No, but honestly, I think with this podcast, and then I remember speaking to Hassan about this before we started it. It was all just about us, especially, I guess, me. I don't want to speak for Hassan, but me trying to, I guess, better understand my relationship or the relationship between what I love to consume and what I love to enjoy and spirituality. So as someone who grew up religiously on film, it wasn't until very recently, I guess a few years ago, where I realized, hey, you know what, you've actually, as you said, gained a lot of wisdom from this art form that you've consumed all over, and it's not something that's separate to your spirituality, something that's part of your spirituality, something very intimately close to you. And I love the way you look at the film industry and the way you've described kind of navigating or I guess the way you perceive the industry and the way you consume media, because that's essentially what this whole journey is for me, to be quite open with you, is that kind of finding where I am in all this, in this crazy messiness that is my religion, be it the obvious part of my religion, my salah, or my inner faith, or watching Drive or The Thin Red Line or The Godfather, and where that kind of all falls into place. So I definitely appreciate that point. Hassan, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I was gonna transition to something else.
Go ahead, go for it.
So going back on what you said about doing indie work and having control over your work, but then doing it at a higher mainstream level, is that kind of how you founded like your consulting firm, Numinous company? Is that kind of where that came out from? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I would say I'm still in the pretty early stages of kind of trying to build that into what I think Numinous company can become. It's something I've been thinking about for many years. I just was dragging my feet on getting it actually organized and launching it. But actually being cast in Miss Marvel is actually what kind of forced my hand. Just from a very legal and just accounting standpoint, I had to have a legal entity through which to be contracted as an actor to take advantage of certain tax benefits and all that. And so once it was like, all right, I'm creating my entity now anyway. Let me use that to finally organize things that I had been doing in a very, Muslim bubble quality manner. I've just been, because these are my friends. I work with my friends in show business. Many of them are Muslims, and I keep it real friendly. I keep it real, homey business. But it is important to be, again, even as a Muslim, our religion teaches us, anytime you have an agreement, reduce it to writing.
Mm-hmm.
So being professional about our business obligations is part of our religion. The Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people forget he was an agent. His career, his dunyawi career, quote unquote, how he met his first wife, right? He was an agent. He was a trader on her behalf, going in and making deals. So being a trader, being a tajir, and being a commercial trader is actually prophetic. So this idea that often, gets crept up into some of our discourse that is sort of like money is bad, money is inherently evil. All that stuff is wrong. It's not true. Money is not inherently evil. It's how you obtain your money that matters. Are you ethical? And then once you get the money, what do you do with the money? If you're just about hoarding wealth and, buying, fancy, luxury items and trying to get a yacht and
Astaghfirullah.
Listen to him.
Astaghfirullah. Why would anybody do that?
Yeah. It's like, and again, even all that, it's like, hey, man, live your life. Just know that that's what your intention is, right? And if you're getting what you intended in this world, then why would you ever maintain hope to get something beyond that in the next world? Our whole deen is boiled down. It's all about intention. So if you want to be a rich, famous guy, and so you can have all the toys in the dunya, and then God gives you all that, makes you a rich, famous guy, and gives you all the toys in the dunya, why would you expect to get anything in the next world, So this is something I keep in my mind a lot. Anyway, long story short, Numinous company is basically my small production / consulting outfit. It allows me now, anytime any of my friends, I have a bunch of friends in Hollywood now who have cool, interesting projects going on, whether it's a TV show they're developing or a comedy special they're trying to put out or make a podcast or, write a script for a movie or whatever. And they want my input, right? Whereas previously it would just be on a homie tip, like, hey, man, will you look over my script? Hey, will you listen to this and give me notes? Now it's like I can more formally say, of course, I would love to help. Here's how I suggest we do it. I would be a consultant, or I'll be a consulting producer or an exec producer, and in exchange for my services to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you give me, X, Y, Z.
Nice.
And then we negotiate, we make an agreement, and we just, it's kind of what I was talking about a moment ago, like just the quality control, better quality control, more professionalism in my dealings with other creatives and collaborators, and all of that just ultimately brings greater clarity to what I'm doing day to day, Recently, I would say in the past several months, I discovered or I learned something that has helped me quite a bit, because I tend to be a very over-analysis paralysis guy, just over-analyzing the problem, thinking of 10 different solutions to the same problem, where it's like, just pick one and just actually solve the problem. Stop trying to think of better ways to solve the problem. Just solve the problem. So this is a problem that I have in my personality, and I know that. So one thing that has helped me a lot is to get out of this macro question, like, what do you want to do with your life? Just such a difficult question to answer. What do you want to do with your life, right? Instead, there's a more practical question, which makes it easier, which is, how do you want to spend your days?
Oh.
I know how I want to spend my days. I want to spend my days working on stuff that I think is important and good and spreading light, not just making heat. And I want to work on it with people who are, people I respect. And I respect people professionally who have two attributes, personal integrity and professional competence. Problem is, generally people have one or the other. I know a lot of people who have personal integrity. I trust them with my life and my soul and my kids, but they suck at business, or they just they're not good at the dunya thing. Or I know people who are really good at it. They're masters of the dunya thing, but, I don't trust them personally. So when I find people who have these two attributes, then it's like, yo, long-term player.
So let me ask you this: as like an actor, writer, producer, and a stand-up comedian yourself, when you make your own content, right? What do you find to be the most difficult part? Does it come with the idea creation, the script writing, the producing, the funding? What do you find is the most hardest?
Well, first of all, I mean, if you notice, I haven't been making content for a while.
Right.
My own stuff, you know. So we had the Allah Made Me Funny tour years ago. We made a DVD/concert film off of that. I released one comedy album in my life, which was in 2004. And I have not made content myself. I've just worked on other people's stuff for a while, precisely because I started realizing that, you know, I'm not good at the self-promotion thing Nuri was talking about earlier. You know, he's trying to get more views on your podcast, right? You work so hard on this podcast. Of course, you want people to listen to it. But then to get them to listen to it, you got to engage in all this, like, me, you know, give me your attention, click on me, look at me, I'm so dope. And just that whole thing, like, I was early to YouTube, man. I put a video on YouTube in 04, my first ever video, 04 or 05. You know, I had this sketch character called Tinku Patel. And I had made this web series called Tinku's World, you know. Tinku's World is based on this premise that there's a guy, Tinku Patel, from India, and he's hired by this Chinese production company, Red Millennium Films, to come to America and make a propaganda film against the United States, an anti-American propaganda movie. And he considers himself the Michael. I'm Michael Moore of India. You know? Very funny character, hilarious. And I made a couple episodes. They're still on the internet. But I figured out very quickly, man, like, oh, right, this YouTube thing, the whole game is me, you know? And then the phenomenon of the YouTuber then came into existence. And then the whole idea of being a YouTuber, you know? Hey, what's up, guys? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like, oh, my God. Like, I couldn't do it. I was like, bro, I worked too hard to get good at stand-up comedy. But just that idea of like, hey, I'm a guy and look at me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I just couldn't do it. It just felt so gross to me. And I'm not even trying to be a hater, bro. I'm just sharing my personal...
Being authentic to yourself, basically.
Yeah, my personal sensibility is like, bro, I don't want to do that. I'm not that guy. You know. And another thing I realized early on about YouTubers is that you could become popular on a digital platform. You could blow up on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram right now, right? Let's say you have 1 million people, subscribers or whatever, followers, right? But if all you know how to do is make really good, funny videos, the only way for you to monetize that is ads on the videos or sell them some merch, maybe. But you cannot exploit the biggest financial opportunity, which is live entertainment. You can't sell tickets to an event. You could try, and they did try, and it's like, yeah, but once you finally are in front of a theater of, you know, 300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, and you suck because you're not an entertainer, you don't know how to do comedy, you can't entertain live people. All you know how to do is sit in front of your, you know, screen and, hey, what's up? Don't forget to like, subscribe. That's all you know how to do. Then you get to make one. You make your bag one time, cheat all your fans one time, get the bags, and none of them are gonna come back and see you live again because you suck. You're not a live entertainer. So I just realized this is a different lane. I am a stand-up comedian. Everything else that I've done has come out of my work as a stand-up comedian. I became a writer because I know how to do stand-up comedy. I became a producer because I know how to do stand-up comedy. I became an actor, which is ridiculous to me. I think acting is the stupidest thing, one of the stupidest activities on earth. Bro. Acting is so dumb. What's that?
It's all good, man.
Are you trying to be an actor?
Hasnain is an actor.
No, listen, I'm just keeping it real with you, bro. And I'm saying this as an actor. And I know actors who are very good at their craft. And I respect them that they work so hard on it. Like, that's cool. But just as an activity, as a human activity, like, oh my, the idea that we live in a society, bro. We live in a world where it's like, okay, people who are really good at pretending, we give them awards. So you got an Oscar, and now we should care what this guy thinks about anything in real life, or tell us about foreign policy, like, because you're really good at pretending. The stupidest framing.
It's that.
Same thing about athletes.
It's that. Sorry to cut you off. It's that Dave Chappelle joke, that classic one, when he says,
what does
Ja Rule think about this? Have you seen this one? Oh, it's so funny.
Well, it's the perfect joke to illustrate this absurdity. And the same is true for athletes, by the way. You know, Mo Salah, God bless him. He kicks a ball around, bro. Man kicks a ball around, and somehow it's like, this is a person you're not a serious person. So it's like we live in this inverted world where people who are famous, they get celebrity and they get the status because of notoriety that is born out of these instrumentalities of mass media. We value what they have to say, even though they don't have shit to say about anything. There's no reason to take a person seriously because they're good at sports or acting or making people laugh or whatever. There's really no reason to take that person seriously. And then simultaneously, we don't take seriously the people who are like geniuses, brilliant, 3 PhDs, right, written 20 books, and the guy's got 500 followers on Twitter because nobody gives a shit about serious people. So this is an inversion. This is part of this is a deeper problem of the time we're in. And as a result, we're hurtling towards like this very, very suicidal type of outcome for our species as human beings. And instead of being able to see clearly what's happening, we're all just, caught up in the wave. Caught up in the wave of just, validating this insane world. Like Fudayl ibn Iyad, I just read this quote recently. He's a great Sufi saint. He started as a criminal, and then he had a big change of heart, and he became a saint. But Fudayl ibn Iyad, he said, the world, he said the world is an insane asylum, and the people who inhabit it are insane, are mental patients, and mentally insane people always must be kept in prison, basically in an asylum, and that's what it is. Like we live in an insane asylum, bro. And the comedian's job is just to George Carlin. Yeah, George Carlin had a wonderful description. He said, "Look, this world is a insane asylum shit show, and when you're a comedian, you get a front row." No, he said, and some of us get a front row seat. When you're born an American, you get a front row seat to it. And he said, and some of us are comedians, and he said, and we have a notebook, and that's it. That's the difference. We're just sitting there watching the shit show, taking notes. Like, this is ridiculous, bro. We live in an absurd world. Like, why do we take people seriously because they're good at pretending? It's so silly. It's so ridiculous. It's like something children would do. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's play house. Oh, you're so convincing as the mother. No, I'm gonna take you as a leader.
Here's an award.
Yeah, it's so stupid, bro. I'm sorry. And then, by the way, I've come to believe that stand-up comedy in many ways is stupid as well. I mean, stand-up is stupid, bro. Like, just as an activity, because ultimately it's all the same magic trick over and over. It's the same magic trick. I'm bored by stand-up, Hey, guys, you ever thought of X? Well, let me tell you about Y and how X is like Y. Shut up, bro. Shut up. I mean, so most people just shut up, myself included. Like, I realized also that my relationship with truth, Hasnain, you were touching on this earlier. Something you said reminded me of this. About the Speaker's Square. What is it called?
Speaker's Corner.
Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, where it's like people are there, they're fighting and they're debating, whatever. And it's like, bro, I'm actually not interested in debating anybody. And the reason I realize that is because I don't care what anybody thinks. In fact, I don't even care what I think. Because I just want to know what's true. I just want to know what's objectively the truth, bro. One of the things that irked me the most about going through a public school education in the United States and then getting an advanced degree, going to law school, have a law degree, people look at that like, oh, you have a lawyer, you're a lawyer, you have a law degree. It's like, bro, I slept through my law degree. I literally hardly ever went to class because 99% of education, the so-called education system in the West today, in the Socratic method, is what? It's get an assigned reading, you go to class the next day, then the professor goes around the room. So, Nuri, what did you think about that? Well, I thought blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, Hasnain, what do you think? Well, I think, well, it's like, motherfucker, I don't care what you think. I don't care what I think. Who cares what you think? Who cares about your opinion?
That's true.
What I feel blah, 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 blah. I feel, well, fuck your feelings, bro. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about my feelings. Who cares about feelings and emotions and made-up opinions? It's irrelevant. I want to know what is actually true. That's all I want to know about. And so therefore, it's like my relationship with truth claims evolved to the point where it's like, bro, I don't care what I think about it or how I feel about it. Irrelevant. I just want to know what is actually true. And the definition of that is that which would be true even if I never existed. That's how I know I have removed myself from the equation, because my feelings and my opinions are irrelevant. If I never existed, if there was never a guy that God created called Azhar Usman or Hasnain Ali or Nuri Sardar, guess what? The sky would still be blue. The grass would still be green. 2 + 2 would still equal 4. And there is no God but Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God. So like, these are just facts, bro. So just having a dispassionate relationship that is completely disconnected from trying to convince you of I don't care. I don't have any my views. And I want to convince you of my views. All of this is ego, has nothing to do with the truth. All of it is irrelevant to me. All of it is heat, not light.
Deep. Hasnain, you can't follow that with any wisdom of your own, can you?
Nah, I'm gonna let him win this one. I'll get back to him.
Azhar, winding down, before we get into the last question, which is something we ask all, I guess. As my new sheikh, you've now become my new sheikh, so enjoy the constant questions I'm going to send you. I really wanted to ask you about Sufism and its kind of relationship with I guess how it's helped you live life, especially with your career. Sufism is something I'm very intrigued by as someone who grew up around Sufism. My mum used to take me to dhikr sessions. My dad is a follower of Sheikh Nazim. So I grew up around Sufism, but I kind of became detached from it growing up, and it's something I'm actually very intrigued by now in this stage of my life, I guess, as I return to my authentic self, looking back and kind of reconnecting with my roots. So I guess I'm not asking you to define Sufism in 2 minutes. What I am intrigued by is how that kind of lifestyle of being a Sufi or aspiring to be a Sufi has kind of helped you within your career, dare I call it that, or your yearning to express yourself as an artist. My questions are very deep, I know.
He doesn't care about your question.
Bismillah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah. The first and most important thing I've ever learned from Sufi teachers is ittaqu man idda'a. Beware the makers of claims. In many ways, that's enough. Just go through your life and you will encounter people who are making claims about the truth, and you must beware. There's a lot of cult leaders out there, a lot of charlatans out there, a lot of self-interested parties. They're getting something out of it. Money, power, fame, sex, a'udhu billah. There's a lot of cults. So that's the first and most important piece of advice I've ever received is ittaqu man idda'a. Beware the makers of claims. The second thing I've learned from them is, you must submit to one who is worthy of your submission. Otherwise, you will benefit from no one, and no one will benefit from you. Operative phrase, to me anyway, is one who is worthy of your submission. A lot of people get tripped up on the way because a lot of us get tripped up on the way because we end up submitting to one who is not worthy of that submission. That's how you end up getting taken advantage of. The third thing I would say about the subject is, I would never A'udhu billah. And again, beware the makers of claims.
Mm-hmm.
Me saying I'm not making a claim is a claim. So it's like, I've never in my own heart, let alone to others, said like I'm a Sufi. That's an insane, to me that's a crazy claim. What we learned from our akabirin, from our elders, is love the Sufis and attempt to be among them and attempt to be with them, but don't make claims about it. I don't claim A'udhu Billah to be a Sufi. I claim to love the Sufi, the real Sufis. And I also recognize that there's a lot of goofy Sufis, fake, counterfeit. We're living in the age of counterfeits. There's counterfeit everything that exists. Lust and porn is counterfeit love. Social media is counterfeit friendship. Crypto is counterfeit money. Money itself has become counterfeit money. Fiat currency is counterfeit gold. Has no real intrinsic value. Age of counterfeits. It's Dajjal. This is all Dajjalic, by the way. The age of the Dajjal is the age of counterfeits, the age of inverted reality. So, dangerous times, brother. So that's a lot. I'm already past your 2 minute. I'll just conclude. I'll conclude by sharing with you some of the wisdom that has reached us from the early days. Which is that they've been saying this from a couple 100 years after the Prophet ﷺ, which was that the moment this term entered the lexicon, tasawwuf. Tasawwuf, was not a word that was ever uttered by the Sahaba. This is a discipline that emerges in the history of Islam. But they also never said tajweed. They never said nahu, grammar. These are things that were known to them, but they were not systematized into disciplines of knowledge. So similarly, they say that, in the early days of Islam, tasawwuf, Sufism, was a reality without a name. And today it's become a name without a reality. And the last thing I'll say about it, which I learned from a sheikh I spent many years with, where I learned a lot, man, and it's too much to get into. It's probably a whole nother podcast, but I ended up leaving that group after 15 plus years for reasons I don't want to get into right now, but I did benefit tremendously from his teaching and from his wisdom. And he used to say this all the time, man. He would say, tasawwuf, he's Pakistani, so he spoke in Urdu, right? He's like, tasawwuf, ye qaal nahi hai, qaala yaqulu, ye qaal nahi hai, ye haal hai. Tasawwuf, ye qaal nahi hai. It's not words. It's not qaala yaqulu, he said, it was said. It's not words. Ye haal hai. It is a state of being where your heart is present to Allah 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sleeping, eating, breathing, talking, watching TV. Your heart, dil. Dast bakar, dil bayar. Hands working, heart with the King, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Sufism is nothing more than the method, the teaching, and the practice to train yourself to live in that state. And we pray that God definitely brings us to the real ones who have this state, and those who teach us, who can teach us how to cultivate the state. And may God, give us that state. I mean, that's the goal.
I mean, one of the goals. Beautiful.
Get your heart right.
Beautiful. Ahsant. Final question before we let you go, bro. Is a question we ask all of our guests, and I guess it means different things to different people. The word spirituality. But what would you say? Again, I know it's a hard thing to talk about in a few minutes, but how would you describe the relationship between your art and your desire to express art and create art and your spirituality? Whatever you define that to be.
I guess I don't even have the words to explore that. It's just I'm too close to it, Like my life is a spiritual path, and my work is integrally related to my life. So I don't compartmentalize it that way, where it's like, oh, how does my spirituality affect my art? Like, it's just I'm too close. I'm just living my life, trying to get right before I die. You know, trying to. God bless you.
Thanks.
Just trying to get right before I die, bro. That's the way I go through life. In many ways, I feel already like, okay, I'm in the bonus round because I got hit by that car and that was completely life altering.
Right.
And then I spent a lot of time trying to reconcile aspects of my life that were out of integrity. You know, all the million different little ways in which, you know, life can be out of integrity. So I put myself under that microscope and started to see very clearly, like, oh man, I'm out of integrity here. I got to fix that. I'm out of integrity here. I got to fix that. And so it just started like dominoes. They all started falling. And that's not to say that, oh, suddenly it's like, oh, now I'm perfect. Like, of course, I still have a million. My whole life is a big contradiction, man. I would have quit comedy and quit entertainment many years ago if I didn't have a sheikh who basically advised me that this is my path. I have to walk this path. And, you know, Ibn Atta'illah al-Iskandari, rahimahullah. If you don't know who he is, you can look him up. He's Alexandrian, you know, Sufi sheikh and mystic and incredible figure from Islamic history. So he wrote a book called Al-Hikam, the aphorisms. And Ibn Atta'illah al-Iskandari, rahimahullah, God have mercy on his eternal soul. He has this amazing hikmah, this amazing wisdom teaching in the Hikam, where he says basically the meaning of his hikmah, of his wisdom teaching is your desire to leave the world when God has put you in it represents a hidden appetite. Shahwatul khafi. Shahwa, he uses the word shahwa, an appetite, a passionate desire. The opposite is also true. Your desire to enter the world, if God has kept you out of it, represents a hidden appetite. So all this hateration of like, I don't want to be a comedian, I don't want to work in show business, it's all, ultimately it's still ego, it's still nafs. You must bloom where you are planted.
Deep.
This is what the real masters say. You must bloom where you are planted. So my job is to figure out in life how to navigate my path and do so in a way without selling out my core values, without doing things I don't want to do, and it's not to say I'm doing a perfect job. I've already made mistakes and I will continue to make mistakes. And I just ask that God forgive me for those mistakes. You know, I don't make no claims to be perfect or even to have worked it out. You know, this is very much a work in progress. And that's why I look at life as like, okay, if life is a test, well, it's an open book test, and we're allowed to share notes and help each other pass. So that's the way I go through life, man. It's like anybody I meet, if I can learn something from them, I try to learn from them. If I can teach them something, I try to teach them something. But ultimately, it's like this is the story of life: is just trying to get right before you die. And for me, as a comedian who has built a livelihood through creative work, that is a never-ending riddle. Maybe the last thing, a nice neat button to end this whole topic on, is a great quote that I came across attributed to Confucius. Confucius supposedly said, "A man has two lives. The second one begins the moment he realizes he only has one."
That's deep. Damn.
Ars.
That's deep. That's powerful.
Ars.
Man like Confucius. Damn.
Shout out Confucius.
Shout out Confucius. Also,
Shout out Hazrat Confucius.
I appreciate you. Also, I know. You know, you said you walk through life learning from people. I know you learned so many lessons from Hasnain on this episode. Hasnain, you know, he just imparts so much wisdom upon all of us. So, you know, thank you, Hasnain, for your wisdom. Also, I know you don't like to mark yourself too much, but where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Where can people catch up on your latest work?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, look, as much as I hate the whole, you know, like me, follow me, all that stuff, you know, we got to live in the world. So I have a website, azhar.com, azhar.com. And then I got links to all my social media accounts and all that stuff. And I'm actually kind of at a brink. I'm at the brink of launching this new phase of the rest of my career.
Nice.
Which is going to be built, inshallah, on Web3 decentralized media, decentralized content, the metaverse. So, Azhar Usman will be operating as Lion of Light in the metaverse. And what does that mean? What does that look like? TBD. But I'm working on some real cool next-gen VR stuff. So I'm very excited about, inshallah, the moves that are coming.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. Cool. Appreciate you, man. Take care, man. Assalamu alaikum.